Welcome to the Simply Mindful Wellness Podcast. Join your host, Tracy, the Mindful Wellness Coach, as she takes a deeper look into nourishing your body, mind, and soul. Because being well creates the freedom to live life the way you want.
Thank you, Jen, the Conscious Living Coach, for joining us today. If you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about how you got into doing what you're doing, your journey into that, and what it's led you to doing today.
Okay, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. So my name is Jennifer McKenzie, aka the Conscious Living Coach and owner of Lunar Spirit Wellbeing. I have two businesses. So I have my physical business, which is Lunar Spirit Wellbeing. It's a holistic and spiritual studio in Bedfordshire where I provide holistic therapy, coaching, meditations. And then I also have my online coaching practice where I help women overcome anxiety to awaken to their true potential. And I coach online, and I have clients like from all over the world. And it's a fabulous job. I absolutely love it. I can't really call it a job. It's my passion, really. And I have my own podcast called That Inner Voice. And I also write as well. I've written 2 books so far, and I'm in the process of writing my own book. So yeah, I do lots of things. I'm a huge mental health advocate as well. I give a lot back to the community, helping people with mental health. I set up a men's monthly club with another guy as well that I work with. And that's a community-based thing, so it's all voluntary. So I like to give back as well, and help people master their minds, heal their bodies, and just like open people's eyes to holistic well-being. It's not always everybody's choice to go down like the medical route, and with waiting times, and you just get given a load of pills. Modern medicine is amazing in so many aspects, but for me, there is a lot of stuff that you can do holistically and spiritually that is going to benefit you so much more than actually taking pills and masking. Getting to the root cause is and prevention rather than cure is something that I'm really passionate about sharing and educating people on. But and really what I do comes from my own personal story. Now, I haven't always been this vibrant, this energetic, and, this well off spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I was bullied at school. I've had a bit of a tough journey with myself and relationships and things like that. And it kind of stemmed from school, some childhood trauma. There's some few things that I won't talk about, but that are very personal, but things that happened in childhood. And then at school, I was bullied for being myself. And it made me feel like there was something wrong with me. It really did. And that led me into my early teens, and I picked up drink and drugs at a very young age. And I was a little toe rag as well. I was rebelling, but underneath all that, I was scared. I didn't know myself. I just felt like there was something wrong with me, and I hated myself, and I struggled with my mental health as well. My first suicide attempt was at 15. So there's unfortunately that I just got left. There was no medical intervention. There was no support system for my parents or anything like that. My mum was always trying to get me help for my behavior and things in school. And it actually turns out that I found out recently that I actually have ADD and possibly on the autistic spectrum. So now that all that past stuff makes loads of sense to me now. And, because I've just felt really different. I felt like I was misunderstood. I was very outgoing. I got told to be quiet a lot, and calm down, And so I felt like a lot of my life I have been squashed and told I'm too much, told to be quiet, don't do this, don't do that. And I lost my voice, like not properly, I lost myself and I lost my voice, and I became a people pleaser, and always being scared to speak up for myself in some respects. But then on the other hand, I was in some aspects I was extremely ambitious and a go-getter and tenacious, and I, if I'd set my sights on something, I'd get it. But then I had this other part of me that, especially in male relationships and romantic relationships, I got into toxic abusive relationships from my teenage years, and looking back, like, all of my relationships were very controlling, and I would kind of do as I was told and things like that. And anyone that knows me now, it's like, what, you do as you're told?
What a change.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what you've said can resonate with so many people, like going through the school and educational system, being bullied, feeling different, not really knowing how to fit in, but then having this kind of awakening, and now everything just makes total sense, and you're able to put those pieces of the puzzle kind of together, which I'm guessing has kind of led you into the healing practices that you're doing right now with your lunar spirit wellbeing and your health coaching. So if you can tell us a little bit about kind of how you work with people then, because you mentioned something to me earlier about being anxious to awesome, which I absolutely love. So if you can tell us a little bit about that and how you work with that.
Yeah, so as somebody who has experienced anxiety from a very young age, I had severe social anxiety. I would literally I'd go red, like in a room where someone talks to me, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to be in public. And, that's when I found alcohol. And that became my superpower. So often a lot of people use alcohol as a crutch, because it lets your inhibitions down, it settles your nerves, but it's actually has the adverse effect for anxiety later on. At the time, it's a very quick fix. But and then, I experienced traumatic relationships. So I had physically violent and mentally abusive relationships. And I had trauma from that. And with the trauma response, it sits in your body, and from that I developed what the doctors called fibromyalgia, but I don't actually believe I have that. I believe I had unresolved trauma, where I then was anxious. My body shut down. I was in pain. My gut was in a mess. I had then IBS. So IBS is also linked with severe anxiety disorder, and also trauma. So I believe that these conditions that I was diagnosed with were actually the result of long-term stress and trauma. And I was anxious. I didn't want to pick up the phone. I didn't want to go out. It's the anxious feelings, the worry, the being on high alert all the time, thinking that someone's going to hurt me, or something's going to go wrong, I was going to crash the car, something awful is going to happen to the children. All this stuff was the result of this unresolved trauma. Now I'm going to take you back where I didn't leave the house. I had the curtains shut. I was in pain. I had probably 2 days out of the week where I would do stuff. The rest of it, I was laying down. I was in pain, and I couldn't enjoy my life at all. And this is when in 2015, I actually tried to take my life again. And from being in the hospital, I got sectioned. I was in a psychiatric ward for a considerable amount of time. I had a spiritual awakening. And I thought to myself, I can't go on like this anymore. I've got to do something about how I'm living my life, because I felt like there was no turning point. There was no way out. I was stuck in this cycle of addiction and anxiety and this feeling awful, mind, body, and spirit. And it was in there, and I had a white feather was just placed upon my big book of AA. For those that know, we in AA you have a big book. It's called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and big blue book. So on top of there was this strategically placed white feather right in the middle, and it stopped me in my tracks. And you know what? I dropped to my knees and I sobbed. It like something shifted in me, and it felt like a light came back on, and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed like I never sobbed before, and it like everything just went out of me. And I said to myself, I'm not going to give up again. So I took the knowledge that I had from previous training as a holistic therapist and Reiki practitioner, and I started to rebuild my life. And this is how I help people now that are experiencing this long-term trauma, that are stuck in a cycle of anxiety, and they just don't realize how awesome they are. And this is the program that I run, from Anxious to Awesome, Awaken to Your True Potential. And I work with women in this program who, are feeling stuck. Anxiety is running their life, their emotions, they're in their head, they're not in their body, and they're experiencing like the pain and the trauma, and they're not being kind to themselves. And this is like a massive thing for me. Especially as women, we're just so horrible to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Aren't we?
It's that inner dialogue that we have, that never quite good enough. There's always something going on. We've got 1,000,001 things to get done in the day, but it's just a pressure cooker that we're kind of concocting for ourselves a lot of the time. And like you said, it's if you can take that time to just invest in yourself sometimes, and, going back to events, traumas, things like that, they do get energetically and emotionally stored within the body. And if you don't release them, and, that the feather landing was obviously the catalyst for you in that case. And if you're not going to release all of that stuff, it just gets churned up inside, and it's like I guess you find it's like a cycle, just repetitiveness. And you if you look back now, I'm guessing you see like similar patterns of repetitive behavior, and you'll probably see this in the people that you're now helping, is that trying to help them awaken themselves to noticing more than anything, and being mindful, I guess, of like you're saying, being present in stuff. Okay, so you're supporting all these people, you've had your spiritual awakening. Tell me about living consciously, so being the conscious living coach.
So to me, conscious living is being aware of your thoughts, feelings, and your decisions. Being conscious, you get to choose. You get to choose how you want to react. You get to choose who you want to be around. You get to choose how you show up and be the leader of your life. And we're often run on autopilot. And like, have you ever like got in the car and then you've got to your destination and thought, oh my God, how did I even get here?
All the time.
Yeah, because we just autopilot. And we're often then running on our subconscious and unconscious belief systems. So that means our subconscious brains is in charge of over 95% of how we think, feel, do, act. And our conscious mind we're only using that a very small amount. And so what it is bringing forward these subconscious beliefs. It's becoming aware of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and we get to choose then how we react to them. We can't choose what comes into our head. We have like 68 to 78,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of those thoughts are actually repetitive, and we often go on a loop of overthinking. And in what I do is I help to interrupt those neural pathways and replace those thoughts with more positive thoughts. So often we are, the way we're talking to ourselves, and we're running on that unconscious behavior and thoughts. We're actually just kind of wading through life. But living consciously, and it's being aware of the planet. What are we doing to actually help the planet? What are you putting into your body? What are you absorbing from the people around you? Because energy is everything. We all have energy. Every living thing, plants, animals, and Mother Nature put like a medicine in our foods. And if you could see like a picture of me 10 years ago to what I look to now, the energy is completely different. And that is because I went in and I changed my mindset. I changed the way I thought. I changed the way I reacted to my emotions. I understood triggers. And so I could really live consciously. Sometimes the mindset monkeys are still there. I'm not perfect by any means. I have bad days. I had one, a bad week the other week where I just wanted to say, F it. What am I doing this for? And then, I thought, what am I doing? And I thought, no, what am I not doing? I wasn't taking care of me first. I was spreading myself really thin. I was trying to be everything to everybody. And my practices slipped a little bit. So then it slowly starts to creep in. And as soon as I was aware of that, I stopped everything. I surrendered and done my energy healing, meditation, wrote down how I was feeling and did some ugly crying to release some stuck energy, shouted a bit into the room, punched a pillow, and ta-da! It shifted, and it did. It shifted pretty quickly. What would I have been stuck in that cycle for weeks, maybe months? A day or two.
There's nothing more freeing than an ugly cry sometimes.
I know, right?
Yeah, just getting all of that energy out of you. And like you were saying, you get stuck in these loops, these patterns, and the mind monkeys, however you want to call it, the negative thoughts that we have, they're just thoughts at the end of the day. But we don't realize, most people don't realize the profound effect that it has on us as our actions, our behaviors. We can literally be stopped from doing things from a thought that's triggered a response in our body. And like you were saying, linking it back to trauma and stuff like that. So isn't it fantastic that you're now at that point that you can do this and you're educating other people to recognize in themselves? And this is the sort of stuff I believe they should be teaching in schools, right from primary age. Is that like, just stop, like notice what is going on with you, be okay with your feelings and stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm sure, like, I don't have children, but you obviously do have kids, and I'm sure you notice a lot of things with them if they've been to school and they've come home, and being able to help the younger generation as well as us women that have been through the mill and things like that. It's just excellent. So what's really inspiring you at the moment to continue working like this with the people that you come across?
Well, like I said, I work a lot with mental health and giving back to the community as well. It's the state of the system. People are on waiting lists for sometimes 2 years. And we're raising all this awareness of mental health, awareness of how people can actually help themselves. But then they're going to the standard sort of healthcare professions with all this awareness, and then they're getting stuck and they're getting lost in a system. So what we're having is lots of people are just sitting ducks. They're left with their own thoughts, and the suicide rates have gone up. People who are in pain every day and being diagnosed with things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, have gone up. And things like, high blood pressure heart disease is all rising. The domestic abuse is rising. And what I really am passionate about is empowering people, not for me to heal them, but for them to heal themselves and to start taking charge of their own health and their own decisions, not staying stuck in shitty relationships, in shitty jobs, and with ill health. It is possible. I was homeless and I had nothing. My family were not talking to me. I'd lost all my friends. I had no money. I was hungry, beg, borrowing, stealing sometimes. And if I can turn my life around and start a business from scratch with about £3.50 and an old massage table, you can do it too. You know, not necessarily in the wellness industry, if that's not your thing, but there is possibilities. And what is holding you back is the thought that you can't, is the thought that you're stuck. You're not stuck. You know, and these things don't happen without action. And I'm quite harsh with, I don't pussyfoot around these things. And, you know, and I think that is, some people don't like it, but oh well, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to tell people that it is possible. And if you know, if you keep telling yourself you're stuck, if you keep telling yourself I can't do it, then you're going to stay there. And
absolutely.
That's the truth.
For me, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you can, you can. If you tell yourself you can't, you don't. And you don't even like enter into it. But I also think, like you were saying about like the allopathic care and people getting stuck in the system, it's how the system is designed to you know, to keep us in that system. And as soon as we have that awakening, we realize actually it doesn't need to be like this at all. And then we want to tell everyone and get them involved.
Makes lots of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, if we're awakening and we're not sick, we're using plants and we're using holistic methods and spirituality, the people are not going to get paid. And, you know, we start self-healing. This is this is conscious living as well. And it's like, you don't have to be stuck in a system. You don't have to be stuck with authoritarians and things like that. And so this is like me pushing against that. And it, you know, you don't have to stay stuck.
Absolutely. And I think thinking about what you were saying earlier about when you were a child and you're being told you're too much, be quiet. It's almost like you've been squashed, like you said, into that little box, and now you're rebelling against it and you're telling everybody you don't have to be like that.
Yeah, you know, and it's like I watched a YouTube thing about the good girl, kind of the good girl blueprint or something like that, and it's as women we just want to be a good little girl and like stay quiet, stay unseen, and stay unheard. Yeah, that's not me.
I can imagine. That's an alien concept to me. I've never been like that. Always too much, always doing the things that you shouldn't be doing. But then that's how you learn.
Yeah, but keep doing that, you know, keep sharing, you know, women, we need to stand up. We need to keep sharing our voices and telling our stories, because within what, you know, it's not just for women, but for everybody, you know, whatever gender you are. It's not about gender. It's about us as a collective human race, like awakening and sharing our stories, because it's the ripple effect. Once we start talking, we start sharing our stories, somebody hears that, they start sharing, and then you know, and then we can collectively raise consciousness and heal.
Absolutely.
We'll sit here and don't say anything.
Absolutely, definitely. And I think by sharing stories and letting people know about your experience, you never know who you're going to help, do you? You never actually know who's listening, who's watching, etc. You know. And that's what I find so profound about doing these podcasts, is actually somebody's going to listen to this, and whether you know it or not, you could be helping them because they've been through something similar to you. And this is what I really love about what you're doing, particularly with the giving it back and the mental health. And it's not, like you say, it's not gender specific, it's the human race as a whole. If we can all collectively realize that there's more to life. And, you know, has anybody asked the question, to get a little bit out there now, why are we here?
Yeah.
Are we here to work 9 to 5?
You know what you put on your status the other day, and I went, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I talked about that in a meditation group last night, because it really got me thinking. What was it again? It was, what if thinking that we're in our own way is getting in our own way?
Yeah.
And I was just like, because I'm a real
absolutely. And it's one of those things that when you just stop and think, like you say, when you just stop and think about it, it's like, wow.
What if we're exactly where we're supposed to be?
And then people are just like, oh no, but I need to get to here, but no, I mean, I'm a great believer in like the esoteric and spirituality and stuff like that, and that actually this point in time is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Oh, excuse me 1 second, that's my dog. Sorry, just 1 second, I'll edit this bit out. What are you doing? Thank you. Well, thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. My shopping delivery's just turned up half an hour early. I wasn't expecting that, but my dog obviously has to greet the world, so apologies. Okay, so we were talking about so esoterically and stuff, like, are we exactly where we're supposed to be right here, right now, at this point in time? Should we be striving to get to the end result, or is it about the journey? And
it's about the journey. But if we're always thinking that we're in our own way, are we then skating over, acknowledging the uncomfortable feelings because we think we shouldn't be feeling them?
Absolutely. And again, this is all like, when it depends on who you listen to, doesn't it, and where your training comes from, etc., etc. Like, are we supposed to be a certain way, or are we just supposed to be ourselves?
Yes, yeah. So I think once you start going in and unlocking that awareness, you start to build on that. And it's like, actually, you know, because I used to be in my masculine, like totally, like so guarded, like untrusting, and always like busy, do, and I was then all off balance, because we all have masculine, feminine energy, but I was always in that masculine. So I was then blocking myself. And actually the divine feminine comes with flow and abundance. So when you can actually surrender into that, and have a balance of the two, and allow yourself to be in flow and to be soft, is actually where you then attract more by doing less. So it's
amazing.
For me, I just love energy healing. It literally is the essence of my life, and it saved my life. It really did. Like, spiritual practices saved my life, and it saved me from my own head.
Yeah, for sure. So your business is Lunar Spirit Wellbeing. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the moon, because we obviously have a full moon today. So how do you incorporate kind of the feminine energy of the moon and stuff into your practices?
So I run the full moon cacao ceremonies once a month with the full moon, and what we do is it's normally women that turn up, sometimes men do come as well, but the moon is linked to feminine energy and our emotions. So usually at this time, when the moon starts bulging, our emotions are bubbling and coming to the surface. And what the full moon sort of highlights is, what do we want to release? What do we want to fall away, to then make room for what it's supposed to be for us. So it's the full moon releasing is releasing things that no longer serve us. And what we do in the ritual is we write all that down. And also the full moon is about forgiveness. And I always include the ladies, men to include themselves on the forgiveness list, because forgiveness isn't about forgiving the actions of people. It's about creating space and detachment from the past, because we can't change what's happened. What we can do is to change how we feel about it. It doesn't mean we're condoning people's actions or wrongdoings. It just means that we are cutting the cords and we're creating a peace. Forgiveness is all about us. It's all about the inside. So you imagine like how that feels, hanging on to resentment. You know, it doesn't feel nice, does it, inside? So when we're letting go with acceptance and compassion, it clears our energy, it clears our blockages. And then what we do is then we replace that, we replace that then with gratitude. And we practice, you know, what are the things we're grateful for, the people, the experiences that shape us into who we are. And the moon energies run through my practice, and I've always loved the moon since I was a kid. I just remember staring at it in awe. So when I rebranded from the Healing Shed to Lunar Spirit Wellbeing, I had to have the moon in there somewhere.
Absolutely. I love that. The fact that it's kind of brought you full circle back into conscious living again. So being grateful and so on. And like you say, the moon energy has a real profound effect on women. We sometimes go a little bit crazy around that time. Like,
but with the moon phases, imagine all the phases of the moon. And I find the moon teaches us to love and accept ourselves at every stage. And because, you know, the moon still shines in the darkness.
Yeah.
And often these moments of darkness is where we can learn the most. So, there's lots of meaning in there for me, and not just around the rituals, but just around the whole, you know, the moon shines anyway in the dark and in the sky. And I always found comfort in that when I was going through the darkness. The darkness then is, you know, Eckhart Tolle calls it the dark night of the soul, doesn't he? And but it's so transformational. And once you get comfortable learning to sit in that darkness, you can learn so much about yourself. And, you know, then you can start to move back into the light and into abundance and light. But we need the darkness. We need the light and the dark. It exists in all of us, and we need it to move forward.
Oh, for sure. Yin and yang, definitely. It's all about that energy balance, for sure. Okay, so if I was to ask you, what is the most important gift or the most important thing that you want to be able to pass on to the people that you serve?
Trusting your intuition.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. Trusting your inner guidance system and loving yourself, unapologetically, with compassion and love. Like, learning to love yourself is one of the greatest gifts you'll ever give yourself. And it doesn't always start with love. It's a process of acceptance, kind of liking a little bit, then liking a bit more. And then you start to fall in love with yourself. You start to fall in love with life again. And it's acceptance comes first.
Oh, absolutely love that. Okay, so if you had to give one tip now to the listeners about working maybe with falling in love with yourself, what would it be?
It would be acceptance is definitely the foundation of everything. And I say the word over and over again, but to learn to love yourself, you must first accept and let go of perfectionism, because it just doesn't exist. You know, we're all different, and comparing yourself is just going to make you miserable. And comparison literally is the thief of joy. That acceptance comes first. I do a lot of mirror work with my ladies who are struggling with themselves and what they look like. So I would say, like, go and look in the mirror and start to say nice things to yourself. You can do it fully clothed first, but then it's brave, right, to stand fully starkers in the mirror and just look at yourself and start to accept the parts of yourself that you don't like, and think about what that part of your body has done for you or does do for you. And then you can start to build on that acceptance. And then you can say, actually, I quite like that part of me. And then comes the self-love, having strong, healthy boundaries, not walls. Walls keep stuff out. They keep the bad stuff out, but they also keep the love out. Strong, healthy, loving boundaries, and knowing your worth. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. Okay, so final question then that I asked to everybody is, what does mindful wellness mean to you?
So mindful wellness would mean to me being aware of what I am putting in my body, being mindful of my thoughts, being mindful of my physical body, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So for me, the four bodies come. You can't do one without the other. And it's being conscious of what you're thinking and feeling about yourself. So wellness is that whole package. It doesn't just mean going to the gym and eating healthily. Wellness is getting enough sleep. It's surrounding yourself with the right people, because who you surround yourself with, you become. So you have to be mindful of that as well. And how much exposure you have to things like the news, social media, and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's about, really thinking about all aspects of your wellness.
Awesome. So thank you very much for your time today, Jennifer. If people wanted to find you or get in touch with you, how can they do that after today?
So you can find me on Instagram, Lunar Spirit Wellbeing. You can find me on Facebook, Lunar Spirit Wellbeing, the business pages. And my personal page is Jennifer McKenzie, where I share quite a lot of my own personal shiz. And I'm pretty much an open book and very honest and raw on there. And you can listen to my podcast on YouTube. That Inner Voice. If you search The Conscious Living Coach, you will find it on YouTube, and it's on all major platforms, Apple, Spotify. And then if you Google me, there's various articles and newspaper and magazine articles you can read, things like Addict to Entrepreneur, and then a piece in the Metro and everything as well about how I went from homeless crack addict to a well-being business owner.
Gosh, that is a story for another day. But yeah, you're everywhere.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Simply Mindful Wellness podcast. Join us next time for a new episode.